I am Matt Wilhelmi, and I'm joined by Sarah Mitial and of People Architectural Group. And we were talking about this business where they've been around for 40 years. The ownership is thinking about transitioning the business. And Sarah and I are going to kind of dive in now to really unpack some of the issues that this business might face. And Sarah, being a 20+ year veteran in the HR world, I'm sure she's seen some things. So Sarah, from your perspective, what are some of the issues that this business is going to face?
I think, Matt, anytime I'm dealing with change, you're dealing with change management, you have to worry about the people, right? Our people. You have business needs, and you want to make sure that they are aligned. And so whenever I hear a change like this, I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I need to make sure? I need to make sure my people are okay, because they are the wheel that keep it, the car going. And so I always go back to Maslow hierarchy of need. So what do the people need? Their basic need. They need to feel physically okay. They need to feel psychologically okay. What do we need to make sure that they need to do? So stability is what is, you need to make sure you communicate. And it sounds like this organization is doing that.
So Sarah, you just said something really, really important. I want to make sure I heard you right. It's not just the stability, right? It's not just that they're gonna get paid. You need to communicate the stability. That's really, really key there.
Yeah. So I think definitely you need to make sure your people are okay. So how do you do that? It's like looking at your culture and making sure that if you weren't doing it, you need to make sure you're doing it. You do it going forward, because you don't want your people to start running. So, because
I would imagine if that were to happen in this business, that would be a nightmare. And I would like in almost every business, right? Like you're a new leader and you're looking around and all of a sudden everybody's leaving. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. And a lot of time when they are leaving, it's because of that basic safety is not there, right? Then whenever you hear turnover, you hear low engagement, you hear these kind of HR keyword stuff like that. There's a lack of stability and the lack of safety going on within that organization. And that leader need to focus on what do we need to do? What are we not doing that is causing people to feel unsafe? And why are we not doing to make sure that they are doing what they need to do to help us continue to be in business for the next 40 years, and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, I think about safety and I think about communication, right? It's really, really tough to give that feeling of safety without having things like FaceTime, emails, even just like a meeting. Maybe it's like I need to interview everybody in the organization kind of mentality. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to provide that safety, but communication is absolutely key. So instead of,
we kind of cut off a little bit, but I don't think you need to be face to face all the time to have that safety. It's being present. That's what you need to be, being a present leader. And when you are being present, you and I are communicating and we are seeing each other. I am seeing your expression. I am hearing what you said right there. I feel like this is going to be a safe conversation.
Yeah, I think about, there's maybe a difference between having too much FaceTime. It's almost like the guy, the leader's like checking in, knocking on the door. Hey, have you quit yet? Hey, are you going to quit today? Hey, like that's not what you want. No, right? You want a leader poised, confident at the front of the room, kind of laying out maybe a 100-day plan or some of these things you hear in business school, but just like leading right from the front.
I think you starting before we start talking about employees, we need to make sure that we as a leader or this leader has the right mindset.
The leader's mindset is so important because if they have a negative mindset, man, that's just not going to be good for anybody in the organization. They need to stay positive. But what happens if they have that negative mindset? How does that look like? How do you know?
I think negative is negative, right? It's opposite of positive. And so I think when you are going through a change like that, a lot of emotions comes up, and there's emotion of letting you know that my gosh, I've never done it before. Obviously you've never owned an organization. My God, I'm not good enough. You may not be as good as the person who's leaving the organization, but that doesn't mean that 40 years, when you have the chance to prove yourself, you're not going to get there. One of the things that I have in my office is that it's a quote that says, your potential is beyond what you can see, and you have more value than what you've been heard, than you've been told. And that is something that's telling people, leaders or anyone, myself, that today I am making decision based on what I know, but what I've done. But I'm going to learn stuff today. So tomorrow, my decision making is going to be more impactful. So this new leader who's coming in, his decision is going to be so much more impactful. And a year from now, tomorrow, and the next day, 5 years from now, and so on and so forth, than it is today, because he have had a chance to grow an organization for a year, for 2 years, and so on, lead an organization. And the same thing about value. Your value is within you. So the fact that he's going to step into this role, that means somebody believe that he can. So he just needs to be able to step into it and give himself a chance. So start thinking about, and I always said the first thing you do when you are trying to change your mindset from a negative to positive is to be honest with yourself and take that mirror and look at yourself and assess yourself and said that, yes, I can learn. I don't know it today, but I can learn. And then also owning the things that you can do, and owning the things that you can't do. If I don't know how to do finance, I'm not the strongest finance guy. Well, there are so many people like Matt out there who can help me. So why don't I lean into you? Right? I'm going to lean into people to be able to do that, and bring others along if I need to lean on others, I'm going to do that. But bottom line is, I need to know that I can, you know?
Yeah. Sarah, what I hear you saying is a lot of, comes from probably a place of having seen this a lot. You talk a little bit about negative mindset and believing in yourself. But man, I've talked to some business owners that think that they can do too much, right?
Mhm.
They try to take on too much. They don't ask for help. Maybe they're nervous about asking for help. But what I hear you saying is that would hold a lot of leaders back, right? They need to ask for that help. They need that team to kind of come alongside of them. And that actually reminds me of a book that I read to my kids. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book, but it's called Room on the Broom. Really, really short story, but Room on the Broom is a really cute kid's story about this lady who, rides around on a magic broom, and she keeps finding these cool little like animal creatures to like come along with her on the journey. And after like the fourth or fifth animal, you're like, oh my gosh, is there really going to be another one? And the kids really like it and they really like it. But she always says, hey, there's room on the broom. We're going to go
Mhm.
somewhere. We're going to have fun together. And the moral of the story is that if you make room on the broom, you're building this team atmosphere. I'm not going to ruin the ending in case you want to get the book and read it to your kids. But I think that applies in business too. You got to make
Absolutely.
room on the broom.
Awesome. So Matt, like I said, I think it's very important for this new leader to really get their mindset going. And the second thing that I think they need to do from an organizational perspective is, if they're going to stay, as they have that mirror I was telling you about, and they look at themselves, they also look from the organizational perspective. They need to kind of figure out, how do I stabilize the organization? So the communication is fine. But firstly, I think they need to decide where they want to take that organization. So again, spending some time to really think about, the previous owner did this. What do I want to do? What do I want to, when I retire, what do I want to be known as? And then identify the supporting managers. This is somebody who's been with the organization for 10 years. So he's part of the organization. So he knows where the skeletons are buried. So he already know what the employees want. So I think identifying who their supporters are, and who the people who's going to resist the changes he wants to make are. And I think that's very important. Before we even go and start talking to the employees, we need to know that. And then he needs to know what his strengths and weaknesses are as well. We talked about, relying on people within the organization or consultant to be able to do that. And I think if he can get his mindset, get people on board with him, understanding what employees been asking from a change perspective, keep those things in mind, because it's going to be very important for him to come out as a knight in shining armor. How does he do that? So start thinking about how he can make an impact to the organization.
So Sarah, while I'm listening to you talk about some of these leadership traits, I can't help but think about a chapter I wrote in my book, Taboo Business Questions. And it really dives into this particular topic in the chapter on empowering. And what is an empowering business leader? And I dive into it more in the text, but really I want to talk about the fourth quality of an empowering leader, which is vision caster. And I described an empowering leader as somebody who casts the vision. They're describing a consistent vision that reminds others of where they're headed, and they do it all the time. They have to set that clear, like, here's where we're going. Are you along for the journey or not?
Absolutely. I think any leaders need to, again, as you are setting yourself if the work starts before he takes on that position, he needs to understand how he's going to perform himself. What are the goals and the vision and mission of the organization he's going to lead? And then he also needs to know how he's going to get people to come in alongside him. And all of that thing, if he doesn't do that first part I talked about, the mindset, getting his mindset right, he's going to fail. Because I think we don't want people to tell us we are great. We need to know we are great going into the room, because maybe nobody will think he's great and he needs to prove himself. But if he doesn't have the right mindset, it's going to be very hard for him to do that.
Well, that's some great insight, Sarah. That is really powerful nuggets. And I'm really looking forward to diving even deeper into some of the solutions in our next episode.
Me too.